and welcome to the Thirst for Knowledge show. I'm Sam.
And I'm Regan.
And today we're joined by Chris and Shona. But before we get started, a quick shout out to Kevin, who was our 200th follower on LinkedIn. So thank you very much, Kevin. So Chris, Shona, please introduce yourselves.
All right, over to me first then. So, hi, I'm Shona, and my company is called Mindset in Motion, which I started nearly 5 years ago. And I'm kind of known in the industry now as the Burnout Angel. And that name was given to me by someone on LinkedIn probably about 6 months ago. And I kind of fell in love with it because I thought, yeah, I love that. And, you know, I need to still get it trademarked, really. I should probably protect it. But that is what I do. I had spent many years working in the corporate world, 20 years as a lawyer. I like to call myself the escape lawyer. And I hit burnout big time, but I didn't know that had crept up so quickly. And this is the problem, is that people don't necessarily see it. And there's still a lack of awareness. And it can not just destroy you, but everyone around you. It's like that domino effect where, you know, it just pours out, that negative contagion pours out everywhere. And yeah, it took me 6 years to get the right help. And by that point, I had lost nearly everything. You know, I'd lost my career. I nearly lost my husband. I hardly had any relationship with my daughter. I lost friends. And most importantly, I lost me. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was completely broken, no confidence, no self-esteem. Really did feel like a victim back then. And I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about how I built that resilience back up and how I now help other people to do the same.
Excellent. Over to you, Chris.
Oh, right. Yes. Hello, I'm Chris, or otherwise known as Massage Chris, because of all these, I used to do lots and lots of free parties and festivals, and I turn up at 3 o'clock in the morning being the only sober person in the entire area, and they'd be like, oh, you're Massage Chris. There you go. So I've kept the name because it would seem they've already named me. I've got my badge. I might as well own it. So I'm very fortunate. I've been doing massage for 35 years. So man and boy, I've been rubbing people for their benefit, hopefully. But obviously, like a lot of other people, during lockdown, I struggled because, unfortunately, I lost my dad in the year before lockdown happened, and I was nursing my dad. And then my mum announced a day after my dad's funeral that she had stage 4 cancer too. And so I went from looking after dad straight into looking after mum, and mum died just before lockdown 1. So it was kind of a kind of trippy time coming into the first lockdown. But I was looking to help people because when you look online and you can't help people physically because we weren't allowed to go out or touch people, it's really nice to be able to refer them to something. And the help that was out there on YouTube was awful. It was rubbish, it was long, it was boring, and it didn't work. So we started putting together little videos to help people, and that's grown into workshops. And now it's very exciting because this coming months we're going to launch our video courses. But it's all about giving people back control of their physical health, their mental health, so that they can take action and they can build their own resilience. And hopefully this should knock on for businesses as well.
Fantastic. Thank you both very much. So you've both mentioned resilience there. Obviously, COVID has been a terrible time for everybody, and working from home situations have made life complicated for a lot of people. Where do you start building resilience, both from a mental perspective, and perhaps, Chris, you can touch on the more physical aspect of it, that being, you know, in a sane body and in a healthy body. Shona, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, a lot of it is about boundaries, I think. You know, I would say I was one of the lucky ones because I've got my dog, my Chewy. You can come and say hello again if you want to. No, she's just giving me funny looks now. That forced me, I guess, to actually get out. So making that effort to actually have the socially distanced walk every day with somebody else was great. That kept me connected. For those people who didn't, it was just bringing in things like, I remember having one guy come to me about 2 months into lockdown, and everyone talked about this COVID stone, right? Just because you're at home doesn't mean you can't still move. You could still get out, you know, as long as you were safe. And he used to cycle to work about 12 miles each way. And he commented that, well, you know, he wasn't able to commute to work anymore because he was now working remotely. And I said, well, why don't you still get up at the same time as you would have done and do a fake commute? So, you know, you don't have to go out on a bike. You could go for a run, a walk. He's now got a dog. And he did. He started doing that. He'd go for like his 10-mile, 12-mile bike ride in the morning and then do the same at the end of the day. And I saw him a while later, and he'd lost the weight. He was so much more positive. And it might not sound like rocket science, but I think people were just all of a sudden thrown into this like strange new world and didn't know how to cope. And there was a lot of overwhelm, and, you know, are we all going to turn into zombies and die? So I do get it. But even in your own home, like, you know, climbing the stairs for 2 minutes a day is equivalent to jogging for 10 minutes a day. Use the stairs if you've got them. Move. Have some sort of, you know, like I've got a post I'm putting out on LinkedIn this week, which I schedule in time for my workouts in my day. So it's not just about filling your calendar full of work to do things. I will have half an hour before, like when I know I've not got anyone booked in, he'll come up with a half an hour reminder on my computer saying, you need to go for a run, because that's what I've put in my calendar. So that then motivates me to actually do that and step away. And I, you know, with now people working remotely, I work with a very big global organization as a contractor and as a resilience coach for them. And I'd say 90% of the people who come to me, they think they're burnt out and they're very quick at blaming the employer, but actually it comes down to them simply waking up, rolling out of bed, starting work, and then sitting at their desk all day and not managing those boundaries, not knowing when to switch off, you know, just little things like that. And that's kind of where I think it's at right now.
Excellent. Chris, Shona mentioned moving about, getting active, getting up from your chair. We had a quick chat with Regan previously, and you showed us some great little techniques and little things you can do. Do you want to add on to what Shona's just said?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about resilience, part of it is just giving individuals back that control so they can just own it. Because there's nothing worse than having pain in your shoulders or your neck, or walking around in circles, or feeling like you're in your head and you just can't escape. And we just want to give people really, really quick triggers to get them out of it so that they can take back ownership of themselves, so they feel better and they can they've got energy and recharge ready for the day. So I think we'll start off with something that I share with people at the beginning of when we do workshops and stuff, and that's a point on your hand. Now, I want you to use the pad, not the tip of your thumb, and we're working in the middle of your palm. Now, this is a move called the Palace of Anxiety. Now, you'll be glad to know you don't have to do it in Indian how mode. You can just do it nice and relaxed, one hand on top of the other. But I have to show you where you're putting your thumb to start with. So this is a simple rub. And now if you find there's a big hole there and you can see through your hand, you're pressing too hard, I'd like you to back off, okay? This is very gentle. This doesn't require any blood, sweat and tears. This is the nicest, lightest thing that you'll ever do. You know when you give a child a telling off and they start doing this, yeah? It's a natural way we have of chilling ourselves out. So anything on that line from the middle of your middle finger all the way through to your elbow, anything in the middle of the inside of your arm is all what we call heart protector, and it genuinely just drops your pulse rate, drops your blood pressure, and gets you out of here. So it's a really simple way of feeling like that, straight back in the room, present, energized, and full of go again. And it's something that I want you to do when you're frazzled or somebody's just getting on your nerves and you've had enough, just take a moment, take a breath. If you can get outside the house or get outside the building, just give it that, just relax for a minute, go back in and you'll be full of go, and they'll be like, oh, I thought I got to him, but no. Sorted.
That nice. I like it.
Yeah, and it's nice. It warms up your hand as well, which is a nice bonus. Now, another one I've got for you is probably my favorite move to show people, just because it always gets a laugh. And this is a move that we do for the shoulder muscles. Now, when we're working on the shoulders, we're looking on the muscle is the trapezius, which is this big shoulder muscle here, goes up to the side of your neck, goes to the top of your arm and beyond. And we're also looking at the area between your shoulder blade and your spine. So you go about a third of the way down, and that's often quite tender in there. So the trick with this stuff is that when people are trying to get to this area of pain, they hold their breath and they put themselves in a stupid position to try and get the relief. None of which is good for you, because as soon as you're holding your breath, you're fighting yourself. You'll get bruises, and not good bruises. You know, no, don't go there. So what I'd like you to do is rest your arm on your upper chest with your fingers over the top. So your fingers are just resting on the area that's probably the most sore, and your elbows just resting nice and relaxed, okay? Now, what we're going to do is pull across. So all the work is going on in your elbow, not in your hand. Your hand is just reacting. So this is a pull down or across, yeah? And you can vary it, you can move up and down around the shoulder blade, and it feels quite nice, yeah? Now, if you want to make it hurt, because some people do, and we have no problem with that, we understand pain management. It's always good to give yourself something where you go, all right, so celebrate that. We like the letting go. So if you want to make it deeper, I used to work in Formula One, which we haven't talked about really, but I was doing 60 massages a day, especially at the French Grand Prix and the British Grand Prix. So when we were working, we learned to use our middle finger and cross it with the index finger behind, which allows us to keep that joint solid. So I don't knacker anything in the side of my finger, and I can work with the tip of my finger to do deeper work. Yeah. So if you apply that same pull now, you'll find it hurts more. You can really dig it in now, and it's proper. Ooh. So we like you to express that pain by giving us your inner pirate. So what I'd like to hear when you're doing this is, ooh, ah.
Is it right that I can feel clicking, or is that just because?
No, clicking's good.
I've already done 2 PT sessions today.
No, trust me. Now, the first shoulder you do, you're likely to start off. I'm a lefty, so I start off with this hand and work on my right shoulder. And the second time, you'll start with your weaker hand, or in this case, my right hand, and you'll do, in this case, my left shoulder, which is my bad one. But for many of you, you're going to be doing it the opposite way around. So now you'll really know about it, yeah?
Yeah.
And be gentle with yourself, Regan.
I've just broken my shoulder.
It doesn't have to hurt, lovely. It's just that suits somebody, yeah?
Oh, but, okay, I see.
So you can do it with the open hand just like that, and that's enough. But that second shoulder will give you so much more relief. And of course, it means that when you're out later on clubbing or seeing your friends at the pub, you're not like this, because that's no good. If you're on the pool, that's never going to work for you, you know. So make sure you're even and breathing, and you allow your shoulders to drop back and down, and this will give you that energy. So you breathe much deeper. You can breathe from your tummy, and you can breathe up the way through. And anytime we can get your shoulders back and more comfortable, you end up with a much more natural curve in your spine. So that means more energy. And I want to see more energy out of you. I want you dancing across the screen by the end of the day. All right.
I can do that.
Give it a go.
I've got one more for you, which is that okay? Would you be okay?
Go for it, please.
I've got more, but I figured I wouldn't swamp it. But the next move we've got, you'll have to take your glasses off for this one. Okay, Regan. So we're going to do something extra now. Now, at the end of your working day, I appreciate that you guys are working at home from the office, yeah? But you probably have loved ones that you care about who are outside of that room, who need your attention at the end of your working day. So we want to make sure you've got energy for those people or your animals or your mates when you go out down the pub, and you can be present rather than just feeling like you've got nothing to offer and you've absolutely got. So what we want you to do is rub your hands together. Now I'm looking here for flames and smoke. If you can set the car alarm, so the fire alarms off, then by all means do so. All right, and so we'll really get furious with this. Get some heat into them. Now, as you can tell, this is a great way of warming you up. It's also good because we get oscillating.
Anyway.
And in a second, we're going to take these and plonk them on your face, and you're going to take 2 deep breaths in. All right. So when you're ready, go.
Can I look here? All right.
Yeah. Don't worry. It's not one of those things thinking, do I need to do this now?
I was peeking, like, is everyone else back?
Okay. That's okay. That's all right. You're allowed. But the nice thing is that blast of heat that you get and then that refreshment means that we're getting you energized. So you're back in the room. If you're working on a big project and you're 2 hours in and frankly, you've lost the plot, you've lost the will to live, or you feel like you've got no creative juice left in you, do this. It takes 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and you're back in the room and you're energized again, and that will last another hour. Yeah. So just enjoy it because it gives you that rush, and that rush is useful because it means when you go out into the rest of the house and you're spending your evening with your loved ones, you have energy for them and you're present in the room, which means that, I mean, let's face it, most of us go to work sometimes to avoid our partners, but mostly because we want to spend time with them and do fun things with them. So if that's the case, we want to make sure you've got energy for that. So just use this one. This one we call the head rush. So it's a real blast of heat. And there are variations on these and lots of other things I can show you, but we'll do some more later on if you want.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are also the Spice Girls massage therapist.
I am. Yes, or I have been back in the dim and distant past now. It's a long time ago. But yes, I've been very lucky. I did the Spice Girls, did the end of the world tour in '98. I also did Faithless. We did a dozen gigs for Faithless all around the country, which was great fun. We talked about.
Yeah, I love that song. That's the best song in the world.
Yeah. And I had the nicest experience with Max, who's the lead singer of Faithless. He came. We were on a gig in Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. He came off the stage after 3 songs. I did him a head massage, and then he went back on stage and carried on jamming. And I loved that. I've never felt more rock and roll in my entire life. I have no skills as a musician, but put me in a rock and roll environment with a bunch of people who are passionate and talented as musicians. I'm very happy, very, very happy man. This year, tomorrow I'm off to Boomtown to do a recce, and hopefully next weekend, any of your audience who like going to festivals will find me in the Healing Field at Boomtown, wearing something snazzy like this.
So they won't miss you.
No.
He's also about 6'7" as well, so like, yeah.
Excellent. Regan, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good for now.
Excellent.
I'm still sorry, kind of shocked from the face thing. I actually felt very like all of a sudden. So I'm just very in a state of impressed right now. So you take it from here, Sam.
Just ride the rush, you know.
I am. I'm loving it.
I have actually got one that. Obviously, I'm not a massage expert, but I work with a lot of people who carry a lot of tension in their body when they're stressed, they're burnt out, they're anxious, whatever. And I've been doing a lot of progressive relaxation therapy with people, and I know Chris will know this. I don't know if you guys know this as well, but I'll show you very quickly a little technique which I do with people, and this is where we all look a bit silly, but I think that's fun. You can start from the top of your face and you can work this all the way down your body. And I've actually recorded like a little meditation which does this as well, which I put, which I've done. So if anyone ever wants one, like just reach out and I'll send it. But you start off, when you carry all that tension, you tense up a lot and you don't realize it. Imagine, think about if you wake up at like say 3 a.m. A lot of the time, if you try and relax, you realize you've been clenching your jaw, or you know, or for me, if I'm driving somewhere and I'm like lost or I'm not familiar with the roads or the traffic's really busy, I'll be holding onto the steering wheel really tight, and then I get migraines and I feel tired, and I realize, my goodness, the amount of tension in my shoulders. So, and it can happen with anything. If you're worried about going into a meeting or work stressing you out, or kids, whatever, you can do this method. So start off with your, at the top, start with your eyebrows, right? And just lift your eyebrows, like do like a startled impression. So really up high with the eyebrows, all right? Just do that on your own. Hold it for about 10 seconds. And then relax it. And relax that whole body down and feel that tension lift off, off your face. That's the eyebrows one. Then do it with your eyes. So squeeze those eyes up really tight, really, really, really tight. Keep holding it. Don't let go. Now release, open the eyes and relax that whole body down. Do you feel that pressure coming off you? And then you can do that with a big wide smile. Do it with your, clench your hands really tight. In fact, we'll do that one. So just clench your hands really tight, really, really tight. Okay. And tense that whole upper body. Keep holding it tight. Relax it all down and sink back into your seat. How does that feel?
Feels nice.
It's just being aware of your own body, and you can try these things, especially for people who struggle with sleep, which tends to be when you've got something on your mind, you can't let it go, and you're overthinking, and that is a really good exercise to do to help you to get back to sleep. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Shona. So that's brilliant. On that perhaps self-awareness bit and, you know, knowing yourself, understanding yourself, why don't you tell us a bit more about your story and how you came to being this burnout angel and all that understanding which you've gained over the years?
I'll keep the story quite short. Basically, I started working, I qualified as a lawyer back in the late 90s and started properly practicing in 2000. And I absolutely loved my job at first. I would say I was happy for the first 10 years of my career. And then in 2008, I fell pregnant with my daughter and realized that my priorities around work had changed quite significantly. I didn't want to be that mum who was never at the school gates picking up my daughter from school. And I wanted to have at least one day a week where I could do that. And initially, the company I worked with were, you know, they were fine with that and it worked really well. And then in 2011, we had a change of management, a big restructure in the company. And I dealt with various different types and areas of law, mainly all kind of civil contentious litigation. And overnight, because of a change in the system and the law, we had to just deal with all types of employment cases, nothing else, just employment. Anybody who practices employment law out there will know that there's a vast difference to dealing with a claim that has a value of a £5,000 limit to one that could be multi-million-pound ones, like massive discrimination cases, whistleblowing, you name it. And I was the most senior person there at the time. And with 1 day training, which just was like over my head, I've got to be honest, we were told the next day we were coming in and we were doing it this way. And I was given all the really complex cases straight away. And I had no idea what I was doing. Coupled with working flexible hours as well, my new line manager, who didn't really, I was the only female in the team, he didn't understand why a woman would work when they've had children. His own wife had 4 children with him, and he would actually make comments like, well, her job is at home, cooking and cleaning and looking after me. And it wasn't a joke. It became boring after the first time he made that comment. And I found myself very quickly having exactly the same targets as the full-timers. And what went from supposedly working 28-hour weeks turned into 80-hour weeks consistently. Because I had the one side that if I didn't take on new work, and if I didn't do the work I'd already done, and on the day that I was trying to have a repressed day, I'd come back into 400 emails. And then on Thursdays, Fridays, including weekends, I was getting into the office at 5:30, 6 a.m., stay until 11 p.m. And I would literally come into work and I'd have a document in front of me and I could read the same line 50 times and I would not be able to tell you what it said. But I didn't know that just by stepping away and doing something different, even for a few minutes, would help to reframe my mind. And I think I just didn't know. You know, I felt like there was so much pressure on me to perform and do better. And if I didn't reach my targets, I'd have a performance improvement plan. And, you know, that was also very stressful. And over a period of a few months, it broke me. You know, I'd have my new manager stood behind me and literally going, that's wrong, that's not right, do it this way, do it that way. And yeah, I couldn't cope. And I pushed everyone that was close to me away because I wasn't getting home till 11 o'clock at night. I hardly saw my husband, my daughter, who was then nearly three, hardly saw her. I lost my friends because I get to a weekend and I was so exhausted, I'd never go and see them. And then they'd stop asking. And then I made a mistake at work. And it wasn't a huge mistake. I sent an email to the wrong person and there was nothing confidential attached. But, you know, I was immediately frog marched out the office and told that I'd been suspended. My line manager reported me to my professional body. So then I had that extra stress of thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my career. And I just remember going to the disciplinary hearing and my line manager saying, we need to remember that in this world, we're not human, we're robots, and we cannot make mistakes.
Right.
And I believed that for a long time. And I now feel extremely sorry for him if he feels like that. But that was when adding more pressure onto me and taking longer to like send an email and deal with things and more work coming in, the panic attacks came on thick and fast. And honestly, the first time I had a panic attack, I thought I was dying. I had no idea what was happening to me. And then I would get these other physical symptoms where my feet would feel like they were in a bunch of stinging nettles. My hands would claw in on me like a proper claw, and they'd be completely paralyzed. Sometimes for 20 minutes, sometimes the worst was about 2 or 3 days. And I just would have so much fatigue as well. I'd have no energy. You know, I remember one time trying to walk up the stairs and it took me about 10 minutes just to get up the stairs, whereas normally I'll be in the gym every day, you know. And I had lots of tests done. There was one occasion where I did completely collapse. My whole left side of my face and my body collapsed on me and I was rushed to hospital. And I had MRI scans, CT scans, blood tests, something called nerve conduction tests, which is like a form of torture. It's a good way of getting the truth out of someone. And every time the doctors would come back and say, oh, we've got good news, there's nothing wrong with you. And I knew there was something wrong with me. I knew my body, I knew my mind, but I felt like I was losing my mind. And, you know, on one occasion I felt so low and I didn't know what to do, that I went to see my GP and talk about it. And in 10 minutes, when you have a GP appointment in the UK and you're there trying to explain a panic attack where you don't really understand it yourself, and he's there looking at his watch constantly. And then, you know, in the end, he just said, you need to pull yourself together. And I remember walking out of there, sitting in the car and just sobbing, driving home, thinking, I'm just an inconvenience. I'm wasting everyone's time. And at the end of 2013, I just couldn't cope anymore with coming home from work, being sick every night with the stress, being sick and crying before I went to work in the morning, dreading Fridays already, because Friday I'd be worried about Monday even by a Friday afternoon. And I just thought, if I don't make a change, if I don't leave this, then I'm going to lose everything. And I did. I walked out of the job, didn't have another job to go to, which was scary. I did, at the time, I felt so much of a failure at that point, and very much in victim mode, that I didn't think I was good enough to do anything else. And I was applying for jobs as things like a cleaner and stacking shelves in supermarkets. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but going from being a lawyer to then thinking that's all I could do, I just didn't. I hated my own life. I hated it. But I started getting back into my fitness, because I've always been massively into my fitness. I actually qualified for the Commonwealth Games back in 1990, but didn't go because I had an injury to my knee. But that was a massive part of my life. And I met a guy who was opening his own spin studio in Portishead, where I live. You trained to be a spin instructor? And I'm like, well, at the time I was 39. I was like, who wants someone who's nearly 40 teaching them spin? But do you know what? I went and did it, and I never looked back. My then worry was, I had such low confidence and self-esteem that how could I sit on that bike at the front of the studio with a mic pack on and instruct? And I realized it was all about the music, the buzz, you know, those endorphins you get when you're exercising, on music as well for me. And oh my goodness, that really helped to find me again. And I got another job local to home, massive pay cut, but it didn't matter. I had to find me again. But then I'd say I went from being burnt out to being bored out, because the job I took on, it had no challenge in there, you know, it was just the same thing every day. And I found after about 6 months, getting to a Friday, I'm dreading Monday again. So it's kind of a similar feeling. But then I got headhunted to work for a big corporate company back in the city in Bristol. And at first I thought, I don't want to go back into that kind of high profile role. They asked me a second time, and this time I thought, okay, but I was completely honest with them about what had happened in the other legal job, and they were really supportive, and I took the job, had flexible working, and in the first 3 months I won Employee of the Quarter award and felt great. I am a good lawyer after all, I can do this, and really again started to pick up my confidence. But within a very short period of time, due again to some structural changes within the business and restructuring, I found myself very quickly being the person that would be working the 60, 70 hours a week. And my way of, I'd learned some self-care stuff. So I knew I needed to fit some exercise into my day. And I would cycle to work. And it was about 12 miles each way. And I woke up one morning exhausted as always, just rushing out of the house, cycled to work, and I had an absolutely catastrophic accident which left me in an induced coma for 2 weeks. I then had to have major facial reconstructive surgery. I'm actually 93, really. You know, the great thing about having a facelift on the NHS in your mid-40s, you can get away with that one. But you know, it left me with a 20% chance of survival. And I guess my question to myself was, if this really was my last day on earth, would I be happy with what I've achieved? And my answer was no. And I realized that basically my whole life had been the values that my parents had wanted. I had no choice other than to be either a lawyer or a doctor. And I was never going to be a doctor because I hated blood. So, you know, my dad was a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer, all of their friends are lawyers. And it wasn't that it was all bad, but I just felt like I was on the wrong path for a long time. And I needed to find my why. And I'll finish this with just by telling you a little story about a lady I bumped into last week. And I actually put this on my LinkedIn. I shared this because I felt it was quite important as to how I found my why and how I know I'm good at what I do. back in 2015, so 2 years before I had my accident, and I was working for this other company where I got a bit bored, and I was in a pretty all right place at this point, and this lady walked past my house, and she was pacing up and down the street, and she looked really anxious, really distressed actually. And I just went and opened the door, and I went up and I asked her if she was okay, and I could tell she wasn't. And I said, look, you don't have to talk to me. I said, but let me come inside. Let me make you a cup of tea. And if you do want to talk, I'm here. Okay, I'm all ears. And it took her a while, but she started to talk and said that her husband was leaving her and that she was a failure, all this stuff. And anyway, at the end of that evening, she left and she calmed down a bit, but I told her to come back if she needed. But then we moved a few months later, and we moved to a different side of the town where we live. So I never really came, back to this area. And then we moved back here about a month ago. And I was out walking the dog last week in the evening. And as I was walking around the park, this lady said, oh my goodness, that's you, isn't it, Shona? And I looked at her and I thought, oh gosh, it's the woman from 7 years ago. I couldn't remember her name. And she said, oh, I've been trying to find you for the past 7 years. She said, but I couldn't remember your name until recently, and it just came back into my head. And she said, I wanted to know that you actually saved my life that night, because I was about to go and end my life. And she said, and I didn't, because you listened and you cared and you showed me some empathy. And she's now rebuilt her relationship with her husband. You could tell she still had some anxiety around her, but I gave her my number and I said, anytime you want to walk, I'm out most evenings at 8 o'clock. We'll have a little walk and a talk. And she sent me, she obviously found me then on the internet because I've got a website, and she sent me this amazing little review about how I'd saved her life and how it was clear that I was going to go on and do this, and that she even referred to me as her angel. And that makes me realize that I was always meant to help people. I've always loved helping people, but when you actually find that passion and drive for what you do, you never feel like you're doing another day's work in your life. And I honestly love Mondays now. I'm not just saying that, every day I can't wait to speak to the people I'm going to speak to. And I'm lucky that my business has evolved. I really wanted to get into the corporate world and help to educate employers and their staff on recognizing and avoiding burnout, because burnout costs UK businesses annually £24 billion. In the US, it costs businesses up to £190 billion. And we've got, there's lots of laws all around Europe which have brought in this right to disconnect. And if you look at the data there and the costs on things like absenteeism, presenteeism, staff turnover, is significantly less than what we have in our always-on culture in the UK and the US. And I now work with a big global company as their corporate resilience and burnout coach, where staff just book in and come and have a chat with me in a safe place. And I'd say 90% of the stuff we talk about is really around boundaries and learning to say no, because that was always my weakness, work-life balance, that sort of thing. And I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's how the Burnout Angel was born.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that story. That's yeah, it's
Amazing.
moving. Yeah. Chris, what should employers be doing to really, support their employees in being more resilient, in having that space? Is it that massage table, in the broom cupboard, or is it having, somebody come along and help them? What's the solution?
That's an interesting question. I think I'm still learning about this. This is a new proposition for me, because obviously up to now, like today, I've been working at a firm in Bristol doing them on-site massage. So I turn up with a massage chair. Everyone keeps their kit on. I keep them warm and comfy. They sit in the chair. I do lots and lots of remedial massage and some nice stretching. They leave hopefully on a cloud, blissed out, and that. But their energy will come back gently for them over the next hour or so. then their productivity goes up, which is good for me and good for their bosses. But they're not left with this baggage, this drama that they carry around. We all end up like this, or a variation of, whether you grind your teeth, whether your shoulders go up, whether you get lower back pain, or whether you get pain in your hands and wrists, or God forbid, you get pain in your tummy because your system doesn't work. It doesn't. We all have our trade-offs and our potential hazards that we suffer with, but ultimately it's giving people the right energy so that they can activate themselves and they can go out and they can be productive for themselves, and much more importantly, they can be happy. We like happy. Happy is our friend. It's not necessarily as simple as like ping you're happy or anything as ridiculous as that, but with the videos that we're just about to launch at the moment, we've got a particular course which is all about screen fatigue, because people at the moment are doing back-to-back video calls, not taking any breaks, not taking a lunchtime, not drinking any water, and the biggest no of all, of course, they're not moving. Not moving is not good because you get bored, you're sleepy, you're achy, and your productivity just does this. So that's not a win for the employer, it's not a win for the employee, and it's certainly not a win for the family that you're going to traipse back into like the bear from the Hofmeister advert at the end of your working day. It's no good. So we want to give people tacit reminders of the things that they ought to do that are common sense. If you're on a video call, does it need to be in your office? Could you do it on your phone? Can you get outside? Why not take a call outside? If it's the sun's nice, you can have a glass of water, you can still do the call, you can still be present during that call, you can still make notes, and you're outside. That's got to be an advantage of working from home, doesn't it? Surely. Or if you're forced to be on meetings where you have to be in the same room, why not put yourself on video off for 5 minutes and stretch? We do all these great moves where we get people shaking and stretching and twisting their spine. And we want you to do that every 45 minutes, regardless of whether or not you're on a call or you're just sat at your desk. But if you're on a call, why not do it anyway? Why not get out? If you were in a normal meeting, Sam, and you were across a boardroom, talking to other people, your mind, your concentration wouldn't just be on the people opposite you. You'd be staring out the window, you'd be looking at the clock, you'd be playing with your hands, you might be doodling on your pad, and all of which is perfectly acceptable in a real environment. But on Zoom, we feel obliged to do this because somehow if we're fidgeting, if we're moving, somehow we're not playing the game. And if you're doing corporate work, they will expect you to write notes. So you're allowed to turn your video off, but you should be allowed to turn your video off for every occasion that comes up. Why not turn your video off so you can move? Why not go? You could go to the loo. If you've got Bluetooth headset, you can wander around. Why not? It makes life a lot more fun. And the reality is that that day has a better flow to it. And you can go and get that glass of water, you can move around and you're energized and your brain is still working. And that's magic. We like brain still working. We like the fact that people are coming back to us and going, this is great. Why haven't we done this years ago? And that's not necessarily to do with the new paradigm of us being on, say, a video call. It's about being able to be present and own your own stuff. So if you say at the beginning of your call, I'm going to be on and off screen at different times, depending on what's going on here. And I just want you to know that I'll still be engaging with the chat and I'll still be present. And you can still ask me questions, but for my mental health, for my sanity, I am going to switch my screen on and off, or make it teeny tiny. So you've got other things you can look at on the screen. So that variation in your eye movement, so we reduce your eye strain, so we can get you, joy. The people are coming to me with migraines, with burnt out eyes, with lots of frazzledness, with pain behind their ears because they're grinding their teeth all the time. Grinding, we can get rid of that, by the way, that's easy. But the nice thing is that you can get them out of these kind of very restrictive modes of having to play and get them fluid again. And fluid is got to be our best way moving forward, because it's about energy and about owning yourself, owning your energy, owning your ability to still be present on that call and bring energy to the people that you're doing. And with a bit of luck, your enthusiasm and your energy will transfer to those people, and they will choose to edit themselves or turn their screens off from time to time. Why not just meet in the park? That would be a great way to do a meeting. You know, you could go for an ice cream. What's bad?
All very true. And I think it's so relatable to, I think, so many people now in this work from home situations. So why don't you give us one last move, Chris, for the road? And
yeah.
Something big, something majestic.
We talked about shaking. Hello, Chewy. We talked about shaking, these moves to get people energized, get them off their chairs and moving. So in every 45 minutes, when you're either on a video call or at your desk, I want you to get up. And so let's get everyone up. It'll be fun. You can do that without.
I'm going to have to readjust my camera a little bit, I think.
Coming.
Careful, fans. Sorry about this. It's normal for me. So what we're going to do is I'll show you into screen so you can see what I'm doing. It's a shake. It's almost like you're wiping water off your hands, yeah? But we're going to do this, and it's more fun if you do it with both at the same time, because you can get some real go now. Woo! So what we're looking for is about 45 seconds and you can move your legs around. Don't feel like you need to stay still. Why not just give us some edge? Oh, enjoy the ride.
Sorry, Jim.
There's
no forever launching.
But the nice thing is, after about 40 seconds, you'll find that there's a little tingly ball of energy on the inside of your hand, yeah? That's blood coming back to the area, and that's your nerves waking up. And of course, because you're moving and because you're energetic now, everything's blood's flowing, you're present in the room, and you've got go again. And go is your friend with this, because I don't know about you guys, but my energy dips and ebbs and flows all day.
I've just created my move alert.
I've times when I'm full of beans, and I'm times where I'm rubbish, and I'm like a broken puppet. So this gets me going. This gets that oomph going again. So as you can tell, I'm a very shy, retiring man, and I don't say boo to a goose. But even I need to give it the shake sometimes. Oh, gotta go. So we've got 3 moves that stood up, but that's
standing desks as well.
Oh?
You can also get standing desks as well.
Yeah. This is it. The best desk you can get is one that you sit at, you stand at, and you get away from. Because they were getting away from your desk. That's great.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, both of you. This has been such a fun episode to film. Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant hearing both of your stories, and hopefully some tips and tricks for people to take home with them. I'm sure all the massage stuff and the shaking and all that will be great fun for other people to do. So thank you so much for that.